like about 30 seconds. So are we queued up to record?
Yes.
All right. Well, it is 6:30. Today is April the 12th. This is the Planning Commission meeting, and I'd like to call it to order. For the record, I'll note that I see visually all 5 commissioners. And I would like to ask that we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think Commissioner Quinones is going to be leading us. Everybody else, please mute so we don't walk over each other.
Commissioner Molinari, I think, is scheduled to lead us.
Yeah, I'll lead you, but I'm going to divert to Commissioner Quinones' flag. And as in the past, I think to avoid looking at everyone's midsection, we'll just kind of look in the camera. Is that the right protocol here? So when you're ready, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's move forward. First item of the evening is public comments to be made on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. Now is the time to hear those. Assistant Administrative Hannes, do we have anybody or any written comments to listen?
No, there are no public comments.
Okay. With that, then we will move to the consent calendar, item 1. Do any of the commissioners have any concerns or items that they wish to pull?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 1.
Note Commissioner Breton is pulling item 1.
The minutes.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Yes.
If I could just jump in real quick, if everyone could check their microphones. It sounds like we have an open mic or two.
That's Roseanne. Roseanne.
Yes. Do you want us to mute it?
Oh, they fought.
Larry, do you want us to mute?
If we mute everyone, we'll figure out who it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I've muted everyone, so you're going to have to open your mics again, commissioners.
Okay. All right, commissioners, are there anyone else that has an item that they'd like to pull? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar without item 1?
So moved.
I'll second.
Do I hear any abstentions or any negative comments? Hearing none, the consent calendar with the exclusion of item 1 is approved. Now, if we could look at item 1, Commissioner Breton, if you have some concerns, I'd like to hear from those now.
Yes, I'd like to make one correction on the minutes. Near the end of the minutes where it says Planning and Transportation Commission comments. That's where we each were allowed to speak about our future visions, thoughts, and ideas. It says Commissioner Breton discussed the following. 1, proposing to designate Avery Parkway as an official parkway by the addition of a median landscaping and streetlights, etc. I didn't propose to designate it as a park, as a parkway, because it already is. Avery Parkway already is a parkway. I proposed that we improve Avery Parkway. Okay, that we develop or improve Avery Parkway with the addition of a median with landscaping and streetlights. Okay, so that's the only correction.
Okay.
And I also propose that we designate all primary and secondary arterials as parkways. So that's just with regard to my comment. And with that correction, I move to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I have another correction, actually, I found. On that,
Okay, do we have to go backwards, Mr. Attorney? Can we reopen this or can we deal with it after the fact?
You just have a motion and a second, and the mover and the second can withdraw their motion and
Yeah,
second. And
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay,
And I'll withdraw my motion.
okay, so
All
now
right.
now we're back.
Mr. Quino.
yeah, just a very small grammatical error I found on that same page, page 6 of the minutes. Under committee reports, where the paragraph starts, the traffic committee met on March 5. The second sentence says, after that first comma, intersection warning signs on Montenoso Drive at Cresta Verde.
Yeah.
So that second warning sign should be deleted.
Okay.
Other than that, that's the only thing I wanted to correct.
Do we have any other corrections while we have this open? Then can I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with those 2 corrections?
So
I so
moved.
move.
I'll second.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. The motion's made by Commissioner Breton, I think by the hair of a slim margin. My Commissioner Blum is the second. Do I hear any opposition? With no opposition, we will move to approve. Let's move forward to item 2, status report, planning, transportation, and commission minutes. Do we have a report?
Actually, Chairman, I think we're on item 3, which is the conditional use permit, and Senior Planner Tim Martin will give us that report.
No.
Yeah, the status report was in the consent calendar.
Got it. All right.
So Tim, take us away, please.
Yes, good evening, Commission. This is CUP 2001-415, and let me get a slideshow set up for a second. Yeah, so this CUP is submitted by Wild Forks Foods, and they are a specialty food market that offers a wide selection of a variety of meat, seafood, including beef, pork, chicken, lamb, and seafood. And they would like to sell alcohol, beer and wine, with the sale of the different meats that they have. So it's a small part of their business. They are going to be located in the Trabuco Hills Shopping Center in the old Walgreens. And as some of the commissioners know, last year, that building, that's the old Walgreens, was approved to get a reface of the architecture and landscaping. And instead of just one tenant, which used to be Walgreens, they're separating into 3 different tenant spaces. And so Wild Forks would be on the end cap, right where the star is in the photograph in the aerial here. And then there are 2 other tenant spaces that the building owner is working on. So so they would like to get a type 20, which again is to sell beer and wine in that 4,500 square foot space. And it's at the corner of Santa Margarita Parkway and Trabuco Hills Center. And this is just to remind the commission and some of the new ones, this is what the refaced building will look like, the old Walgreens. And again, Wild Forks, this is their perspective of their new space on the end cap, right there with the new architecture and landscape. So this is the floor plan. Again, they're looking at the end cap. That's where they are going to reside. And you see the store entrance, and then there's a sales floor of different meats in freezers and refrigerators, things like that. And I'll go into that. And then where the red square is where the alcohol would be kept, adjacent to the counter. So you see the person behind the counter, and then you see a counter, and then there's a customer in front of that counter. So it would be very close to the employees. And this is a typical store that they have, and each one of these freezers are different kinds of meats that they're selling. And it's a high-end meat store, basically. And here's some more cabinetry of what it looks like inside. And you can also order and pick up, just kind of like an Amazon at a post office. You can go inside the store and you can pick up your items within their pickup cabinet here. Now, as far as the interest of the city, with this census tract, we're trying to determine it's over concentrated with the establishments selling alcohol beverages. And at this census tract, the ABC, they authorized 2 off-sale alcohol beverage licenses. And according to the beverage control, within this census tract, there's only 1 off-sale location that's similar, which is Sprouts Farmers Market, which is located in the same center. They have a type 21. So as far as it being over-concentrated, this would not be an over-concentration of the sales of alcohol as far as the ABC is concerned. At this time, we're recommending approval for a conditional use permit 2001-415 and available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, before we open up this, the public hearing on this, commissioners, do I have any questions? If so, let's see if I can, so I can see you all.
Chairman Reich, this is Commissioner Blum. I have a question.
Okay, the chair recognizes Vice Chair Blum.
Tim, are they planning to serve beer and wine in store also?
No, I'm sorry, I should have made that clear. This is for off-site sales where you come in and you buy your beer and wine that's in a bottle, and then you leave the store with your meat and you go and barbecue or things like that. So thank you for asking that question.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
I had a question.
Commissioner Berton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim, do we have the representative from Booze on the line?
Yes, there are a couple of agents on the line. They will be speaking when it's their turn.
I simply want to congratulate them on this is their first store in California. I hope it's very, very successful. I know that there's plentiful duck over here at the lake that they could kill and transport and snap, freeze and sell right there at that market. We want to get rid of all the ducks around here on this lake. My question is this. They propose not only to give to customers that have pre-ordered in the store, but also to deliver them in cars as they drive up. Is that not correct, Tim?
Yes, you can order from and pick up, yes, from the front, I believe, yes.
And are you designating spaces? Like we have the drive-through designation now over by Target on Alicia and the other one on Puerto Rial. We have a special drive-up spaces and lanes so those cars can get the traffic circulation can be facilitated in and out for the delivery of those goods that have been pre-ordered. Are we doing that in this parking lot?
They would have to submit an application to go ahead and designate stalls, such as the ones you're talking about with Target.
Okay, well then, when it's
but they have not submitted, no.
All right, when it's their turn to speak, I will be asking if that's their intention. Thank you very much. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
The chair recognizes Commissioner Quino.
Under the conditions of approval in the draft resolution, I just wanted elaboration on condition number 13, where it says that no products shall be stored or displayed in storefront windows to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Development. If someone could just elaborate on that, are they prohibited from displaying anything in the windows at all, as I read that literally?
Well, we have a very strong sign code, so they can display certain displays in their window up to 25%. Excuse me. Sorry, I couldn't stop that phone. Anyway, but they would need to come to us to do any other kind of signage.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I'm curious about that condition.
I'm sorry, could you state that again?
How it would play out essentially, because I was curious about that condition and how it would be played out. The photo of the storefront in the pages subsequent to that, there's a big window at the front. So I thought, how are they going to satisfy that if they can't really put anything there? But I understand it now after your explanation.
Okay, great.
Any other questions, Commissioner Quino?
No, that's all.
Commissioner Molinari, did you have a question?
Yes, Chairman Reese, I just had a quick question for Mr. Martin regarding the concentration. You had mentioned the Sprouts in the same shopping center. Does that concentration rule for the ABC, is it impacted by the Ralph's or the CVS store across the street in that shopping center?
That's a good question. Those two stores, the tenant census tract is separated right at that street. So
Okay.
South of Santa Margarita, those two stores are not on the same census tract. But there's not a lot of stores other than the two that you're named that are there. We're looking for like a large concentration that would really act, like a Skid Row or something like that. It's probably not a good example, but anyway, but it is in a different census tract, and that's why they're not covered.
Okay.
Excuse me?
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Commissioner Molinari?
No, Chairman, that was it. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin, I have a couple. First one is, if the Walgreens that previously occupied that building, if they had a similar license.
Correct, they did.
Okay, so
Yes, they did.
It's just replacing that.
Correct.
My next question, which may be better answered by the applicant, but is this a virtual store in the sense that, is there a checker, that actually checks out if I were to buy alcohol, or if, like, I'm picking up my order and there's alcohol involved, who's involved with knowing if I'm of legal age?
Yes, they have that counter there, and they've told us they're going to have an employee, in that area. And that's what they've told us, that it's not virtual, that it's going to be an employee there.
Okay. And as
Behind the
far
counter.
as off sale goes, I mean, yes, right now we know Sprouts and this applicant should be an off sale facility. But with COVID right now, as I understand it, there's a number of restaurants that still appear to be doing off sale. I don't know if that's a temporary permit or if that falls into this. And again, perhaps ABC might be a better conversation on this.
Can you clarify what you're talking about?
Well, for example, there is we'll call it the Mexican restaurant, which is 2 doors down from Sprouts. You can buy alcoholic beverages and take them with you. As is, which seems to be rather common in a number of restaurants now that are involved with, the takeout business and trying to stay open. You can buy cocktails in some restaurants as long as they're sealed, and off they go.
Tim, I can answer
Yeah.
that if you want me
If you
to.
could, Emily.
Sure, I'm familiar with that. So you're absolutely right. As part of the COVID, you can get your margarita to go, etc., where in the past that was strictly prohibited. And basically, the State Department of ABC Alcohol Beverage Control temporarily lifted the restrictions on such type sales. So it's COVID related to help the businesses.
Okay, so it shouldn't be, in a sense, that's a temporary issue, so it wouldn't be normally counted, it sounds like, in a density issue with off-sale beverages.
Correct. And I would imagine as we get back to normality that the ABC would rein in that temporary provision.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, well, at this time, then I'd like to open up the public hearing. Assistant Hannes, do we have any written documents or anyone online wishing to speak on this issue?
No, I do not have anyone online.
Okay, well, then at this point, I'd like to welcome the applicant and allow them to present.
Hi.
I believe that's Yvette. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, I'm Yvette Gonzalez. I am the project manager for the Wild Fork here in Mission Viejo. So we're very excited. This is our very first store, as one of the commissioners mentioned, in California, so on the West Coast. And so just a little bit about Wild Fork. So all of our food is frozen, and it's blast frozen to keep in all the vitamins, the flavor, and it just comes straight from the butcher. It's frozen, and it continues to stay frozen until you purchase it and bring it home. And so we will have a minimum of 2 employees on the sales floor at all times, but it'll range from like 2 to 4. I know that was one of the concerns. So someone will always be there to make sure that no one comes and steals anything, that type of stuff. And there will be a total of 8 team members that will be full-time or part-time employees at the store. One of them will be a manager. We're open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And just to answer kind of a little bit of questions that came up, we usually do have a curbside pickup. However, our landlord does not own the property directly in front of us where the parking spaces are. So we need to work an arrangement out with that landlord. It's a whole completely different team. So we will be looking for that in the future, but we just don't have that at the moment. And yeah, all of our alcohol, as Tim mentioned, is right behind the counter, and someone is always there. We do not sell individual beer. It's just wine or 6-packs or more. Yeah, so any questions that I can answer for the commissioners?
Commissioners?
Yeah, I have one, Chairman Reich.
Assistant Chair Blum.
When do you plan on opening?
Right now, we're estimated to open in October. We're hoping for it to be September. Depends on when the landlord's construction is over. But we're hoping to start construction in May. And open in December, I mean in October, the latest.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay.
Hey, Robert, I have a question, please.
I didn't see on the screen. Commissioner Berton, please
I'm
proceed.
sorry, I had mine muted. Ms. Gonzalez, would you object to this following condition then? The applicant shall prepare and submit for administrative approval a plan for curbside pickup of products purchased online.
Sure. Yeah, it's administrative approval, absolutely.
And are you saying that the land, because you don't own that parking lot and unfortunately I think you were given spaces that correspond to the other side of the drive of the street.
Yes.
Who are you going to work with? The owner of the parking lot or the owner of the building that you're in?
The owner of the building is working with the owner of the parking lot to get us a couple of spaces that we can put as curbside pickup with numbers, 1, 2, and 3. That way the customers can tell us what parking space they're parked at, and then someone can go out there and put the box in the car.
So you'll have that in writing when you submit that to the city, that you have permission from the owner of the parking lot.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioners? All right, hearing none. Ms. Gonzalez, I just have one question for you. And again, this goes kind of towards, I'll ask you to look in your crystal ball, if you will. Moving forward, as far as you know, does Wild Forks have any intention of becoming more of a virtual store? In other words, as you pick up your items, you walk out, it's electronically picked up and you could leave with little or no employee interaction.
I don't think so. Everybody at Wild Fork absolutely loves the product. And so it's really helpful to have someone there to really be able to give recommendations, know the differences in cuts. They'll ask you what kind of meat do you like. You need that personal touch for that. So they're not looking into that at all right now. It's people are very important to Wild Fork.
Great.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, this is Alex Ford from Wild Fork Foods. I'm the director of real estate. Just to add on to what Yvette was saying, absolutely training our employees is a huge part of the business. Every associate of the store gets multiple weeks of culinary training, and the customer interaction is extremely important to us. It's part of our business model. So at this stage, we don't foresee any type of RFID where people walk in and walk out with products.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And also to the gentleman that suggested ducks, we're going to get that over to the product team.
Thank you. We have all varieties of ducks here on the lake, and we've been trying for 30 years to get rid of them. So,
we're always looking to expand our assortment.
Outstanding. Well, hearing no further questions, I'll close this public hearing. Commissioners, discussion, anything that you'd like to discuss before we vote on this? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the CUP, the recommended action, and with the following additional condition, which should be condition 22. The applicant, after conferring with the owner of the premises and the owner of the parking lot, shall prepare and submit for administrative approval a plan for any curbside pickup of products purchased online.
Okay. Commissioners, is there any discussion or disagreement with that? Then I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Okay. Do I have any commissioner that is not in approval of this? Therefore, this moves forward. Wild Foods, we welcome you. Very excited to have a business of this type, I think, in Mission Vieo. I think it's going to be an excellent move for us. So I personally look forward to shopping there. I'm not that far.
Thank you very much. We look forward to opening our store.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can stick a fork in it.
I think we have a new slogan.
There you go.
No.
We'll get that over to the marketing team. You guys are great.
All right, so let's move forward to item 4, the draft action plan for expenditures of FY 2021-2022 Community Development Block Grant Funds. Ms. Lister, do we have a staff report?
Yes, Chairman, I'm going to introduce and hand over the presentation to our Community Development Block Grant Consultant, Mike Linares, who presents this every year for the past several years. Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to share my screen here with the PowerPoint, so just bear with me for a second. Here we go. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. So yes, good evening. Again, the item before you is the draft action plan for the expenditure of fiscal year 2021-22 Community Development Block Grant Funds. The recommended action for the Commission is to recommend to the City Council approval of the draft plan. It's going to detail the use of the city's grant funds and then authorize the city to submit the plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. All Cdbg activities, funded activities, need to meet one of three national objectives: benefit low and moderate income individuals, address issues of slum and blight, or meet an urgent need. And it's typically defined as a presidentially declared disaster. For example, the pandemic would be one of the urgent need type activity block grant program. At least 51% of program beneficiaries for activities funded under the program must meet HUD's definition of a low and moderate income individual, which is typically defined at a household with an income of 80% of county median income or below. On page 2 of the staff report are the current income limits. HUD just recently released the 2021 income limits, and they went up just a little about $1,000 across the board. So you have some idea of the population that the programs are targeted toward. There's also two caps that the city must keep in mind when allocating funds. One is 15% for public services. These are social service programs, typically nonprofits providing services to residents of the community. For this year, based on the city's grants, about $57,000. And then there's also a cap on administration at 20% of the grant. So the city has been administering the Cdbg program since the year 2000. HUD did announce this year, Congress approved the budget early and the president signed the budget. So we actually have an actual grant amount. Sometimes in past years, we've been here with a guesstimate, but this year we have the actual dollar amount, $383,901, about $1,000 more than the current year. The draft action plan has funding broken out into 4 basic program areas: housing, public services, capital projects, and program administration. This table basically kind of gives an idea, a summary of how the funds are available and how the funds are proposed. Again, the city's grant, and I apologize, there's a typo there, in the grant year it should be 21-22. But $383,901. There's about $70,000 in prior year funds that we'll be able to carry over into the new year. And then you can see on the right column, recommended programs to fund, and that's program administration, which includes fair housing services, which is required by HUD, public service grants, housing rehabilitation, and then the capital improvement project that's proposed for this year, or for next year, I should say, are ADA improvements at the Norman P. Murray Center. Just a little visually, you can kind of see how the recommendation for the grant is allocated in a pie chart, the bulk of the funding going to housing rehabilitation. The city has had a very aggressive housing rehab program for several years now. And this includes both the city's loan program, its grant program, and the paint grant program, as well as the administration of the service of the program. And then public services, administration, and capital improvements. A significant component, not so much in dollars, but in terms of interest in the block grant program, are the public service grants, the social service programs funded by these resources. We follow the typical protocol that we have in past. In January, we issued a notice of funding availability, made applications available to local nonprofit organizations. We received 8 applications this year, requesting $107,000, 800, and that was about $50,000 more than what we anticipated would be available. There are 3 new applicants to the Cdbg program, which is good. A lot of times it's hard to get new agencies involved in the program. There's a lot of regulations and requirements with the funding, and that does deter some interest in new organizations. And then on March 16th, staff presented the set recommendations for grants to the Community Services Commission, and they have made their recommendations for your consideration. Basically, the commission is recommending funding for all of the applicants. You can see here, again, the services are broken out into some general categories. Homelessness prevention, these are programs that will provide rental assistance, utility assistance to households that may be facing eviction or due to loss of job, reduction in hours. There's also funding for senior services, and then just more generic low and moderate income programs. You can see the new programs. I put an asterisk next to the new programs, new applicants to the program: Family Assistance Ministries, Patriots of Paws, and Veterans Legal Services. These are agencies that have received funding from the city in the past through the Community Services Grant Program, but these are the first time they've applied for it and will be receiving Cdbg if approved by the City Council. With respect to your role, as spelled out by the City Council, the role of the Planning Transportation Commission is to hold a public hearing to accept additional public comments on the proposed use of funds, the action plan, and to make a final recommendation to the City Council on the use of the grant funds. So with that, just in summary, we're asking the council to hold the required public hearing and then to recommend to the council that the 21-22 annual action plan for Cdbg be approved and also submitted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have, before we open up public hearing, do we have any questions of staff?
Yes, I do. Chairman Reish.
Vice Chair Blum.
Thank you, Chairman Reish. Mr. Oneros, can you better define the housing rehabilitation edicts, or how can someone get any of that grant fund money for the housing rehabilitation?
Sure. Well, the city has basically two programs that are wrapped into the one general housing rehab category. There's a loan program, the $25,000 loans, 0% interest, due and payable at the time that the property is sold or transferred. And then there's a $5,000 grant if somebody needs work above and beyond the $25,000. And then there is a $5,000, up to $5,000 grant to do paint, exterior paint as well. To apply or to be eligible for the program, it is for homeowners. It's not a rental unit program. So it would be homeowner. And you would still need to meet the 80% median income requirement. That does go with the program. I'm not sure if there's any more specifics. The city has a consultant that's been running the program for many years, and she has a very well-established application and review program or process. I believe the city has a loan committee that does review loan applications, grant applications, to make sure that funds are going to be used properly.
And Mike, how long does that process take?
To apply for and receive a grant?
Yes.
Or a loan? I apologize. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Maybe if Ms. Lister might know. I think she's on the committee.
Sure. It really can take different amounts of time, Commissioner Baumann. It really depends. It's applying for a loan to, like any other loan. So it really depends on the quality of the paperwork that is submitted. But if the application's in great shape, it can go really quite quickly.
Thank you. That's all, Chairman Reach, from me.
Thank you, Commissioner Blum. Commissioner Berton.
Thank you. Mr. Linares, another great job. I think you're always very thorough, meticulous, and you do a great job on the matrix. When you say in place of this grant, you're referring to several agencies that applied for 2020, 2021 community services grants. And you say in place of this grant, they received $30,000 in Cdbg CV money.
Mhm.
Does that mean that they rejected that prior amount and they received this Cdbg CV funding in lieu of that amount, or do they add to that amount?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question so I can clarify. It was in lieu of the community service grant funding. The community service grant process, this is for last fiscal year, the 2021 fiscal year, the year that we're currently in, when the CARES Act did allocate special allocations of Cdbg funds to the city. So the city was in a position to, for lack of a term, super fund services last year in light of anticipated impacts to community, especially lower income residents. So the city we approached those agencies that were slated to receive community service grant funds that would be appropriate for Cdbg. It was some of the programs that received community services just wouldn't qualify under the Cdbg program.
Right.
And so we approached them and said, hey, instead of these community service grants, we could offer you a little bit more money, but there'll be Cdbg CV funding. And a handful of the agencies did accept that.
So they accepted that in lieu of the community services grant,
Correct.
Understanding that they were receiving 30,000 instead of 3,000. That was an easy no-brainer.
Yeah.
Now, what happened to that grant money then? It went back to the city and general fund money?
The community development block grant, the Cdbg money, or the community services money?
Yes.
I am not sure. I would assume that was community services budgeted funding. I'm not sure how that was reallocated within their budgets.
Okay. With regard to 3 agencies, and I love these agencies. I've worked with them in the past: Families Forward and Family Ministries and South County Outreach. In each one of those cases, you state that they have only used of the amount allocated last year for the Cdbg CV CARES Act funding. They've only used 15% or 31% of this, or in the other case, 25% of the Cdbg CV funds. Can they roll those funds over into this year, and those are still accessible to them?
Yes, excellent question, Commissioner. So with the Cdbg CV, the CARES Act funding, the city is required to have 80% of the funds expended over 3 years. So we're coming up to the end of year 1, basically. And then 6 years to spend 100% of the funds. So we've already started the discussions in-house on modifying the agreements as necessary to extend them out if we have a due date coming up, to be able to extend those out another year or 2 in order to make sure that those funds are spent down and are used in the community.
Well, I think you know where I'm leading now. If that's true, if they have so much money that they haven't spent yet, why are you recommending that we allocate additional Cdbg funds to each one of those agencies? Is that for a different purpose that's not eligible under the CARES Act, or why?
Yeah, excellent question, because it's the first thing that popped into my head when I started seeing some of the invoices coming in this year. I was educated by the nonprofits that believe it or not everybody is impacted by COVID. There were some families, some individuals that have issues where they would need rental assistance, temporary assistance, and that was not COVID related, so they can't use the Cdbg CV funding. HUD is very specific that there has to be a direct nexus to using those dollars, the Cdbg CV, the CARES Act funds. There must be a COVID impact on that family. So if somebody, for example, just was sick, wasn't able to work, lost their job, but it wasn't COVID related, now they have the resources to still be able to help them with the regular Cdbg funding.
Okay, that answers that. Thank you very much. Good answers. My last question is with regard to the veterans' legal services. These are pro bono services. And when I rendered pro bono service as an attorney, it was totally free. So why do they need $8,000 for their law clerk?
I think that they still encounter they do have some costs that they're incurring. And I think that's what these will help cover. This is a new agency. So for me, it's also kind of learning what their program operation is as well. They have received Cdbg funding from other cities, other Orange County cities. Did contact them and speak with them about their ability to use the funds and how, number one, were they for eligible uses, how is their reporting and so on. And they got some very good reviews from those other communities. But my understanding from reading the application is I understand the pro bono component, but they still do have some people that they need to hire to make sure some of the paperwork gets done. I think this is for a paralegal, as I recall, a portion of some costs to cover some paralegal costs.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioners wishing to comment or question? Okay, hearing none.
Mr. Reish, I have one quick question for Mr. Linares. It's regarding Table A, the HUD 2020 annual income limits. In what period is that judged on? So it's for 2020. What years do they use to come up with that matrix, those numbers?
It's updated annually. They just published the 2021 income limits last week, and those will be effective April 1st. They became effective. So typically, there's a couple of months window that HUD uses to produce the numbers, but basically it rolls from year to year.
My question is, in a time period to use this, a lot of people obviously were impacted with COVID, and taxes haven't been filed yet. So those income levels really haven't been taken into effect. I'm curious, that would impact next year's numbers. It wouldn't impact this year's, where there might be a need for people affected having the income impacted because of COVID?
Yeah, it's when an individual is qualified for the services, Cdbg funded services, it's based on their current income, but projected for the year. So if someone were to, let's say, experience a reduction in income because of they got laid off or their hours were cut, when they would go to receive services or qualify for services, the agency would base it on, okay, what are you earning today, not what you earned last year.
Okay.
And they would project out, they say, okay, you're only working 20 hours or 20% of what you did before, and they would base the income based on that to qualify them. So it's looking forward, not necessarily looking back.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
And I apologize to you, Commissioner Molinari. I need a bigger screen. You kind of fall off to the end.
No worries.
I'll be watching for you. Any other commissioner? Commissioner Quino.
Thank you, Chairman Reish. With respect to the single family residential housing rehab program, the report noted that there were 8 units that are anticipated to be improved by that program. How specifically were those units targeted? Where did we determine that those 8 units, they're going to be the ones that benefit from this?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner. It's not necessarily that there are 8 specific units targeted. What I do is I coordinate with the program consultant who runs a program, and just say, okay, how many units do you anticipate working with next year? And so she'll base it on her experience. She also maintains a wait list of people that, if she runs low on funding for 1 year, she may start creating a wait list. So she'll kind of have an anticipated number of properties. So it's really just based on past experience. Usually it's in the ballpark of about 7 to 12 units per year that she would do between loans and grants.
I see.
It's not specific units, although we have to give a goal for our plan to produce it, to submit the HUD. That's why we have to come up with a numeric number or a numeric number.
And Mike, if I can tag on a little bit to that in terms of outreach, we really do try to advertise the program as much as possible. We'll do, we have flyers available. We'll do articles, news blurbs occasionally, trying to encourage applications. So we also, in the past, have gone out to different homeowners associations or areas where we think there might be need. And sometimes we work hand in hand with code enforcement. For example, if they are working on a property that we're getting complaints, if it's run down, poor maintenance, etc., then we'll sometimes drop off a flyer to, again, encourage an application.
Great, thank you, Director Lister. That was exactly my follow-up question, so you read my mind. Is there any reporting requirements after the funding is received, such that these groups would have to tell us how the money was specifically spent? Yeah,
there's a year-end performance report that the city produces, and it will submit to HUD. And that we'll get reports. We get quarterly reports from all of the subrecipients and nonprofits. And then we also do quarterly updates with our public works department, since we'll have a capital project. So we'll be tracking that over the course of the year. And then the same with the housing rehab program, usually about once a year, about halfway during the year. And at the end of the year, we'll coordinate with Teresa, the program coordinator for rehab, to be able to report to HUD. The system that we use for the city to basically to draw against its line of credit for the block grant program, we also use to report the accomplishments. And HUD will put up flags at certain times if we, for example, draw too much and haven't reported accomplishments. We get a little flag that says, hey, get your accomplishments. And I was actually doing that right before the commission meeting today. I was updating some of the quarterly accomplishment reports. So, and those are available to the public to review.
Great. And then lastly, I know there were 8 applicants for the grants. Were there any additional applications that came in after the deadline? And if so, was there any consideration as far as giving them an exception to missing the deadline?
Actually, 2 of the applications were a little bit late this year. And it was just because postage is, it's hard to measure these days, the post office delivering things on time. And so we try to keep a deadline because we need to have established timeline to keep moving forward. But we'll always consider if there's a good reason why someone is unable to get the application in on time. We're not going to be too hard-nosed about it. Like I said, in this case, they were able to show me that they had a receipt when they purchased the postage to get the mail, get the package mailed to us, and it just didn't get to us in time. So we're able to say, okay, fine, we'll work with you on that. But if it's too long period of time, then we'll say no. I'm sorry, we have to move forward.
Certainly. So did everyone that apply get funding or are eligible for funding? In other words, no one was rejected?
This year, all the applications, all the programs that were submitted for consideration were Cdbg eligible. I do a screening of those to make sure that they are. And then the city does have, it's spelled out in the agenda and staff report, there is some criteria that was established by the Community Service Commission, approved by the City Council, to rate the applications. So then based on that, we'll go through and try to accommodate as much as we can in terms of the funds that are available. So this year we did try to squeeze out, get a little money to everyone this time around, especially since we had some new agencies, and we wanted to try to see if we can, support the newer agencies, and let's see how they do. It's a very rigorous in terms of administrative requirements, and it's federal funding. So not everybody is set up to be able to handle the funding, but that's what we're here to help them in the process as well.
Great, and I very much appreciate that. I'm glad we are trying our best to help out the new agencies in getting this funding. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I had a couple more, but I'll wait for the applicants if there's, for the public to speak first.
Well, I just have one for Mr. Linares. In the event that there are unspent funds where does that money go?
The 70,000 that's in our budget this year, that would be funds that were either an activity came in under budget. So we were able to recapture that money and roll it and hold it and roll it into the new year. So once the HUD allocates the funds to the city is able to bank those dollars and use them. So where we wouldn't be able to use the funding for would be, for example, in a public service or admin, because those are capped each year. So typically those leftover dollars will roll in to be able to support housing rehab or capital improvement projects.
And how is that determined? Is that determined by council or?
It's determined by this process that we go through. I work with the staff to determine, we calculate how much funding is left over. We look at our grants. And then we have an in-house process to get applications, in-house applications, coordinate with our housing rehab program, and start building using basically following the city's budget process as well. And we'll develop the program, the budget for the program. And that's where we can factor in how much funding, rollover funding would be available from year to year.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Assistant Hannes, do we have anyone that has given us written or is on the line wishing to make comments?
No, we do not.
Okay. Do we have any of the applicants wishing to comment? I take that to be no.
No, we do not.
Okay, great. At this point, then I think we will close the public hearing and move to discussion. Commissioners? Commissioner Breton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up to the chairman's question, some of our rollover funds we've been able to accumulate enough money to actually assist the families in acquiring condos. Is that not correct? Or transitional housing?
Families Forward?
Families
Yes.
Forward, yes. And how many do we have, Director Lister? How many have we assisted in purchasing?
We purchased two, they have purchased with our assistance 2 this last year. And I want to say that brings it to the total, not just for that organization, but with another organization. I think we have on the order of about 8.
So we have 8 units that Families Forward can use for transitional housing, etc. And Mr. Linares, we're not anticipating rolling over as much money this year as we have in the past, correct?
It's 70,000 is what is being rolled over into next year's budget. That is a relatively small amount compared to prior years. A lot really depends on another wild card in the formula is repayment of prior funded loans,
right.
Program income. And as that money comes in, as people pay off those loans, that's money that becomes available as well. And that sometimes builds up that rollover funding funded amount. So last year there wasn't as much, especially because the city did use a large amount of its rollover, as Ms. Lister just indicated, to help Families Forward purchase 2 units last year. One was, I think they closed right before the holidays was one, and prior to that, I think in September, they closed on the first unit.
I think that's great because that actually effectuates or at least furthers one of your primary goals that you've stated in these annual plans and the 5-year plan, which is to prevent homelessness by helping people that are just about to be homeless and helping them to find a place. I'm very happy to see on your matrix so many agencies that told us that they would serve a certain number of individuals, and then they served more than the amount that they anticipated. They served 150% or they went over and the goals that they had promised us, and and accomplished more than we were asking them to. I had a question with regard to the map that you have on attachment 2 to your report. It says on the legend that the pink areas are CDBG eligible areas. Are there only certain areas in Mission Viejo that are CDBG eligible?
I didn't want to get too technical in some of the basics of the program, but they're under the, recall there are 3 national objectives,
Right.
slum blight, urgent need, and then the low mod benefit, which is where the city mainly uses its funding. Under the low mod benefit, there's 2 ways an activity can be qualified. One is by a direct beneficiary based on somebody's income, household income. The other is an area-wide benefit, and these are census tract block groups that HUD has already identified as having a majority, not necessarily a majority, but a higher percentage of low and moderate income people, again, is defined by HUD. And so those block groups are the ones that are identified as your CDBG eligible areas. And that means that the CDBG funds can go, you can use your dollars in those neighborhoods to maybe, if there's a park, you can improve the park, residential streets, those types of larger area benefits. Again, that's why we call it area benefit, but a larger area, geographic area you can improve as opposed to going and individually qualifying residents.
Okay, like street resurfacing or something.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last thing is just to make a correction on your report, because this is going to the city council.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's on page 23 of your report.
Okay.
The target date for Families Forward, you put June 30, 2002, and it should be 2020.
Yes, thank you.
Or no, 2022, right?
That should be 2022, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. Seeing none. At this time then, I'd like to see if there's a motion to approve to recommend to City Council the approval of this draft for 2021-2022. Do I have someone making a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Vice Chair Berton, or Vice Chair Blum? Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Molinari. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes, and we'll move this to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commission.
Okay, let's move to new business. Item number 5, special sign permit, SSP 2021-180, a petition submitted by Richard Benson, agent for Nathan Monero, for the Ad Art Sign Company to permit a 3rd monument at the Raising Cane's restaurant. Staff, do we have a report?
Yes, Senior Planner Martin will give us a staff report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Commission. This is a project special sign permit SSP 2001-180, and it's submitted by the applicant to provide a 3rd monument at the project at Crown Valley and Medical Center Road. You know that I believe a few of you commissioners know about the new grocery store that's going in. We can't disclose the name, but it's a major food grocer, along with the Raising Cane's store. So this applicant is proposing a 3rd monument when you're only allowed 2 on a site. This monument will be a little bit smaller than what is normally allowed. And I want to go through some history on the site first. So again, they're asking for a new monument, and the address is at 26941 Crown Valley. Previously, the commission did approve the remodel of the grocery store. It used to be the Office Max on Crown Valley and Medical Center Road, along with the new Raising Cane's restaurant. And this is some of the different things that the applicant submitted for and the commission approved on that site. Along with at the very bottom, you see special sign permit 2020-176 to permit an increase of the sign height and area for 2 monuments that are located along Crown Valley. So I wanted to go in this with you. So here's the site. It's actually 2 pads. The one on the right, the building, is the building that's being remodeled to the grocery store. And then you see another pad where there's 2 buildings, and that is where those buildings have been scraped, and they're building a Raising Cane's restaurant that you approved with drive-through. So let me go in a little bit more detail here. So here is the new site plan, and you see the new food restaurant, which is a Raising Cane's that has the drive-through, and then the retail store. And then this is the retail grocery store. This just gives you an idea of what the architecture looks like and that the colors of the monument, the 2 existing monuments that they got to be enlarged, have a kind of the look of the building. Now here are the 2 existing monuments. So a little history is these 2 monuments went in when the Office Max building was built. So like city code, you're only allowed 1 monument per street frontage. But you can see the 2 monuments here. One is at the major driveway off of Crown Valley in the middle of the 2 sites there, in the middle of the page. And then off to the upper right, you see another monument, which they got approval to have 2 monuments off of Crown Valley. So they did get a special sign permit when the Office Max went in. Then the applicant who wanted to develop the site with the grocery store and Raising Cane's asked to enlarge those signs larger than code allows. And the commission last year approved that. So the monuments went from 6 feet tall to 8 feet tall, okay, these 2 monuments. And that's what you're gonna see being installed very soon, is these 2 monuments. But now the applicant is asking for a 3rd monument, and it would be off of Medical Center Road, which would be off to the right of the page where my cursor is. You're gonna see it on the next drawing. Sorry, next couple of drawings. So this is the monuments that they got enlarged, the applicant with the grocery store, from 6 feet tall to 8 feet tall, just to give you a clarification. And then this is the existing Office Max monument that was 6 foot tall. That's one of the monuments that is going up to 8 feet tall. And here's that monument. And here's the other one on the corner, again enlarged to 8 feet. But now they're asking for, and this is in the artwork, now they're asking for a 3rd monument, and it would be over to the right, upper right, you see a green circle. And that is off the secondary driveway to Medical Center. And the applicant is stating that it's not that easy to see when you're heading westbound. Let's say you're at the hospital, which would be at the lower right of this picture. You're driving your car down on Medical Center Road and you're coming down to Crown Valley, and it's hard to see the building. And so they are looking for a monument to be placed at that location. This project did go to design review, and one of the questions for the applicant was from the commission, which was basically, can you take a legal left-hand turn? So if they put a monument here, and you see that there's a major grocery store there, that can you take a left into that secondary driveway where the new monument is placed? And our police services said you can cross a double. You can't cross a double line, but this is just a double yellow line, and you could take a left into there. And we also showed that to our transportation manager, and he confirmed that too. So, so that was one issue. Also, staff thought that the monument shouldn't be as big as the others. And so they were coming into us meeting code with a 6-foot monument. And we had them reduce it to 4 feet wide instead of, you know, the width that you can do in code, to make it almost present it more as a directional sign. Even though it isn't a directional sign, this monument will have the name of the major carrier on it, sorry, major grocer on it, along with their logo. And I'll show you the artwork on that. And this is just a slide, whoops, let me go back. This is just a slide showing what's existing, the 2 monuments. That's the red graphic, and the green graphic is what they're looking for, which is the overall sign area would be 22 square feet. So it'd be much smaller than the other 2. So here's a little close-up of where they're trying to place the monument. It's the green rectangle, which is adjacent to the round green circle to the right of it. And this shows that they're meeting the sight line. There was some discussion in the design review. They're going to meet the sight line for cars to be able to see around the monument, and they will. That's been confirmed. And so this is a close-up picture. The green rectangle is where the monument would be placed. It would meet all other codes. It's the 3rd monument. And this is the artwork again, smaller than the other 2 monuments. It's only 5'6" high with 4 feet in width. And it would have the same artwork as the 2 other monuments, along with the stone that we require in that part of Mission Vieo. A certain stone base that's required. In this area, they would match that. And then on the bottom picture, it shows you what it would look at night. And it's meeting the kind of matching the same color as the grocery store building. And here's a close-up of the monument that they're requesting. Again, this project was shown to the 2 commissioners in design review, including Vice Chairman Blum and Commissioner Brenton. And at this time, staff is recommending approval. There are some examples of where some applicants have gotten a 3rd monument. However, they are a lot larger center, but because we've reduced in size, we believe it's not going to disrupt the look of the area. So with that, I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senior Planner Martin. Before we go to public, I'd like to entertain questions from my commissioners. I see Commissioner Quino.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Reish. About the existing monument signs, excuse me, the ones that are already approved, did they have logos on them as well? Or will they have logos?
They didn't have logos on them before. Currently, the applicant, the new artwork, I believe, is just the name of the new grocery store and Raising Cane's without logos.
And then
the applicant can confirm that, but I believe it's just the name. Raising Cane's would be the lower tenant on the monument, and the upper tenant would be the major grocery store, just the name of the store.
Because I definitely I respect the groceries wanting to not disclose their business name at this time, but I guess my concern is it's hard to approve a sign with a logo on it if we don't know what the logo looks like. Is there someone on staff that has seen the logo or is aware of what that logo would eventually look like?
Yes, I have seen the artwork that I believe is going to be on the monument, but they did give us kind of a mock-up of another name that's very similar to this one, and it's very contemporary. And then the logo, I believe, in my opinion, is very contemporary in nature.
Was that shown to the design review committee when they met?
Elaine might be, or Larry could probably answer that question. I'm sorry, I was not in attendance of the DRC meeting.
Okay, and whether or not it was, are we as commissioners allowed to see it at any point in this process? Again, I mean, respecting they're not wanting to disclose their business name, but I feel like it's something we should probably be able to see.
We did not see any logo at the design review committee meeting. But I guess one comment I'd make is you should consider just a logo in general at this location of the size that's proposed, whether that is appropriate or not, because this business could move out in a year and another business comes in and they can reface that sign. So it's really, you should think of it as just a logo. Does it make sense in this location or not?
Okay. Those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Molinari.
Yeah, so I have a question regarding signage on the actual grocery store. So on the building facing Medical Center Drive, I don't think there's an elevation picture there, but I'm looking just at the vicinity map, and there's a lot of wall space, you know, there between the patio and the parking lot there. Is there a call out on the building itself that shows the, you know, the brand of, you know, who it is, Joe's Grocery Store, et cetera?
Yeah, at this time, I have not seen any signage on the medical center side of the building where it's on medical center. They have submitted plans for wall signage on the side that faces Crown Valley. What they're saying is off to the right, you see the slope right beyond the parking stalls, this area right in here is where there's some trees. And they say that those trees, along with, those are existing trees, along with some future trees, will block the wall of that side of the building. So yes, they could put a sign there, but they're saying is by the time you see it, you'll almost be to Crown Valley. So I'll let them argue that more, but that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I'd like to see a visual of that side of the building, and almost a photograph kind of looking into there to kind of see the impact, because you know, I'm thinking that if that signing is sufficient, you wouldn't need a smaller sign here if you're traveling, you know, north on Medical Center, or for that matter, you know, turning. So for that matter, if you're going south on, or whatever direction on Crown Valley that is, west, you could read the that side of the building as well. But I'll let them speak to that. That's the only question I had, is the signage on that side of the building. Would that suffice?
Correct. Okay. I believe they might have a photograph of that. We'll ask them.
Do I have any other questions from Commissioners Wilmer Berton?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, the chair recognizes Commissioner Berton.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The proposed directional / monument sign off Medical Center Road will identify only the major tenant, correct? Not Raising Cane's, just the major tenant.
Correct. This, if I can, Mr. Commissioner, this application has been submitted by the ownership of the new retailer, is from what I understand. It's
and
coming
so
from them.
There is no proposal to add Raising Cane's on this monument sign at all.
Correct. The only artwork that they've submitted and that they've told us is just the major tenant within the grocery store building. That is the artwork we have. One tenant on the building,
Okay.
on the monument, excuse me.
Second question, if the main purpose, if not the only purpose of this sign is to assist those traveling north on Medical Center towards Crown Valley so that they can see up ahead the driveway to enter this grocery store, why should it be a double-faced sign? Why do you need a sign on the other side facing the driveway?
That's a question we could ask the applicant, yes.
And my third question is, if the purported justification for this sign is the amount of trees, eucalyptus trees that have been there for, I know they've been there for 30 years. The eucalyptus trees which are blocking the view of the building so that if the building had a sign on it, no one can see it as they're driving down. then why don't we include a condition that if the trees are ever removed for any reason, then this monument sign must be removed?
We could add that, and we do have a condition in the overall approval of the remodel of this building that they can't take out landscaping without letting us know. But we could add that condition if you like.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
Okay. The chair will recognize Vice Chair Blum, but before I do that, I just want to state that it's my understanding that Vice Chair Blum and Commissioner Breton were on the DRC on this and have seen this before. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Vice Chair Blum, please proceed.
Yes, thank you. And to answer more of Commissioner Molinari's concerns, we did a thorough review of the site plan and the existing trees along Medical Center Drive, Commissioner Breton and myself. And the applicant was very, very concerned about being able to see into the retail center, and hence they asked for this monument sign. Philip, are you on the line, Philip?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Philip. You guys had answered my question regarding the double yellow, and usually double yellows are installed instead of a raised median. That turn pocket, if that's full, are the cars that are moving north on Medical Center Drive able to cut that turn pocket and get into that driveway, or they just have to wait their turn? And is the queuing going to be set to where there'll be enough time for these people to move into that center at that time? That's been my concern throughout. But it sounds like you're comfortable with that. Is that correct?
Hi, yes, I did review it. It does sit in the #1 left turn lane when you're making a northbound left on Medical Center to Crown Valley. So there may be moments when a car trying to turn left into the retail site can potentially block a car that's making a left turn to go northbound on Medical Center to make a left turn onto Crown Valley. So that is a potential that could happen. From the numbers that we did see, it will not, or it's not anticipated to be a big impact. The majority of the vehicles were coming off of Crown Valley to enter the site. There's a small amount that is coming from Medical Center based on the traffic study. So we did review that. It's not a major concern from our end.
Okay, thank you. And just for the other commissioners, Commissioner Breton and myself have had the opportunity to go through the DRC, and the site plan that we approved included those existing eucalyptus trees. Therefore, the applicant's asking for this monument sign. So there's a visual sign catching the eye of the cars traveling northbound on Medical Center Drive and also coming up southbound. So we've had several meetings regarding that, and that's why they're asking for it. I just wanted to give you guys more input from our DRC meeting. That's it, Chairman Reich. Thank you.
Any other questions from my commissioners? Okay. Senior Planner Martin, I have one, or perhaps members of the DRC may be able to answer this as well. We've been discussing these eucalyptus trees. I know that on our arterials, we're seeing eucalyptus be removed either through disease or perhaps there's an age limit on them. And I'm wondering what our city's experience is in this removal, if at an approximate age, these trees become a danger and are removed, or if it's strictly just by infection or disease. Do we have any input on that? So what I'm looking for to see if these may be coming out in the near future anyways.
Well, I can speak to if they remove any trees, they have to talk to the city first. And Keith Ritte, our landscape architect. He's our director of public services and our assistant city manager. He would be involved in replacing the trees. I'm not personally, I don't have any knowledge of any eucalyptus trees that have come out around the city. He'd be the person, but again, I can state that he would make sure that they were replaced with something else.
So what I'm hearing is under the assumption that these eucalyptus trees need to be removed for whatever reason, we wouldn't see blank landscape, but the city thought would be there would be some other type of tree put in its place.
Correct.
So then the blockage of the building theoretically will be the blockage of the building in Puerto.
Correct.
Yeah, great. Any other questions from my commissioners?
Yes, I'd like to just follow up on your question, Chairman Reich. The visual that we were shown by Mr. Martin, my senior planner Martin, that the elevation showed a smaller tree on the left, a very small tree. It's way back in your slide presentation, and I'm sure that for the benefit of those who are not who aren't on the DRC, the applicant has an excellent presentation that we're going to see now, I hope, with video and computer graphics that show you exactly how this is going to look. But I'll tell you one thing. If I were the major tenant here, I would definitely want to remove those eucalyptus trees, because I have parked on this side by Medical Center Road when I go into the Office Max, and the entire parking lot looks like the surface of the moon. The roots from those eucalyptus trees has caused the pavement to raise in different areas and is at different angles. And it's just a mess back there because of the roots of the eucalyptus trees. So I would not be surprised if they wanted to remove those at some time just to save their parking lot.
Okay, Commissioner Breton, if I may ask, through your observation, is this an issue that might become a health or safety issue, in your opinion?
Oh, I'm not qualified. I'm not a landscape architect and qualified to speak as to whether those eucalyptus trees are in danger of falling in a high wind.
No, I'm not in respect to that. I'm talking about the roots. So if you were walking, do you feel that there's a chance someone might stumble?
No, the roots don't come up through the pavement, but they have caused the pavement to raise at different angles, like V angles, and all throughout that parking lot.
Okay.
And it's just a little uneven. It's uneven. And you can see that it's going to get worse. Now, I don't know, they may be able to just slurry seal on top of that and everything will be fine. But it really is a mess back there with the roots. I don't think it would be a safety issue.
Okay.
Yeah, and Chairman Reese, this is Vice Chair Blum. I agree with Commissioner Breton.
Okay, great. Any other questions? If not, then let's open up the public hearing. Do we, Ms. Hannes, do we have any communications in reference to this petition?
No, I do not have any.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to ask for a report by Mr. Benson, if you'd like to tell us about this project.
Well, if you may, my name is David. I'm with Ad Art Sign Company. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. We're doing a team approach. Mr. Benson is our corporate art director, and he'll be sharing the screen, and I'll be narrating to the best of my ability.
David, before you move forward, can I get your last name, please?
Of course, Isajan.
Thank you.
And if I may, well, first of all, good evening, commissioners and staff. And any chance we can play the Trojan fight song one more time? My My mom used to play that for me as a kid. She's a big fan, so that got me kind of fired up. Nonetheless, I wanted to say thank you to staff. We've been working with them on this for over 5 months. We knew it was a big ask and is a big ask. Our client, who I'm guessing everyone knows, but is remaining silent due to I'm pretty sure I signed away my 2 unborn kids in confidentiality agreements. This was a special request from them. They felt it was worth the time and energy, and they understand how much goes into this with everyone concerned. They would like to participate, but again, they're very confidential. And so we started this process, 5 months or so ago. And before I forget, special thanks to Stephen Thorpe. We've worked very closely with his team, including his landscape architect, to ensure what we hope was the best plan forward. That being said, so I'd like to ask Lucky, which is Richard Benson, for the first presentation. You're seeing the sign package, but Lucky, if you don't mind, can you share the slides as you're going down the hill? What really got us to this point, because early on someone mentioned the sign going on the side of the building. We would love nothing more to have done that. It just wasn't possible. And so I wanted to share a couple of the slides, because we feel the traffic, and when I say we, our client started this with the traffic flow. Their concern was there are going to be a lot of people coming down the hill from the neighborhoods and people that know the area. And maybe as you get to this light, if you don't see and know the entrance, if you will, identify the entrance, you're going to, oh, there we go. Hopefully the screen's working. As you work your way down the hill, you'll notice the trees, and maybe Lucky, you can freeze for a second so everyone can actually see it focused. That didn't work for me, but maybe it just needs to catch up a bit. Maybe easier to go the aerial. If you go down the hill and you don't hit that entrance, essentially you're going to make a left-hand turn, then go to the next light. There we go. Have to make a left-hand. You can't make a U-turn, so you're going to have to make a left-hand turn at that next light and then enter into the property here. And although the green lines show a U-turn, I don't believe that's allowed there. I just tried that. And if you may, Lucky, go back to the design package. I know we're calling this a monument, and I did want to bring attention to the actual copy area, for which the only participant is going to be the grocery tenant. There'll be no other tenants. Is actually about 5 square feet. So roughly 2 feet 2 inches tall by 2 foot 6 inches wide. The rest is just our hope of matching the adjacent signs, which they will, in the way of the stone, the cap, and the background colors, if you will. This is the 3D model of it. The actual logo and lettering we are not at liberty to share, but we do have, as Tim mentioned, oh, there we go. That's a beautiful slide there. And the landscaping plan that's been submitted to the city, we have shared this with the landscape architect, and it's meant to flow with that. And so there'll be no disruption to the landscape plan as it was previously approved, which is what the yellow area shows. Going back to my earlier point a second ago, we cannot share the logo, but I think we have what might give everyone a picture. We have what's called a scrambled version of the logo. And Lucky, if you don't mind, bring that on the screen so they could see the lettering and the logo layout. Might take a second, but if it,
Sorry,
we wish
David,
we could share the logo, it'd be a lot easier.
Sorry, David, I don't know if we did one for the small monument, but I'll take a look and see if I can find it.
Well, hopefully we have that. If not, we can certainly share that after the call. The DRC, which again, thank you for everyone's time. We spent some time going through this, so I'd rather than belabor the point, we just wanted to say thank you. It's been a pleasure working with staff. We've done several projects over the years, and wanted to open it up to any questions.
Commissioner Reese, we can't hear you. Your mic's off.
There we go in my efforts to be quiet. Commissioners, do I have any questions of the applicant by raise of hand? Commissioner Quino.
Thank you, Chairman Reese, and thank you for that presentation. It gives me a better idea of where everything is in this proposal. Is the concern about drivers missing the left turn possibly mitigated by the reality that a lot of people usually rely on their GPS systems to get where they're going and don't really pay attention to monument signs anyway? At least that's my personal experience. But do you feel that maybe that is sort of mitigate that concern?
Well, I can say that having the sign located exactly where it is will essentially eliminate any concern of people knowing where to go or what to do. So understand the question, understand the point, but I think having a sign there, and we're calling it a directional, will eliminate any chance of missing that left turn, thus causing what we think would be, and our client again, when I say we, I wish they were able to participate. I know they wanted to, but if you miss that left, it becomes it's going to be a real traffic nightmare. That's for sure.
Yeah, I understand. And that's my only question. But I am interested in seeing the scrambled version of the logo if David is able to pull that up at this meeting. But thank you for answering my question.
Of course.
Thank you, Chairman. First off, thank you so much for this presentation, and thanks to the design committee for your work, and also for sharing some insights from your meeting that you had earlier on this. I understand the importance of signage for retail and getting the consumers' attention to come and shop and go to market. Commissioner Breton came up with a good idea, I think, regarding the potential condition on removing signage if it came to a point where trees were removed and there was no landscape in place, and there was signage, on the building itself. Do you think your client would be amenable to those conditions?
Yes.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Breton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asajian. My question regarding the double face sign, you still insist on having the anchor tenant on the Crown Valley side of this monument sign?
I believe our client would want that, yes, and it would look somewhat odd to have the backside unfinished, if you will. Again, it's only 2'2" by 2'6", so I'm not quite sure, visually how much that will impact either way, but I think it would look more odd to not have it on both sides.
Well, obviously, if they're coming from Crown Valley, they see that huge monument sign right at the corner. The one that's been already approved. So there's no, I guess the only purpose it serves is that it tells them this is the entrance, this is the driveway.
Correct. It would make it crystal clear to enter right there as they're turning the corner.
Now hold that picture there, please. Do you intend on removing any of those green trees that are right up next to the building?
We are not changing the landscaping plan whatsoever.
Hey, this is Steve Thorpe. If it's okay if I comment on that. I am not the applicant technically. I am the landlord, and I can turn on my camera too. You're all very familiar with me now. If I could share a little bit about the trees, because I know they are of concern in this particular discussion. The trees that are up against the building that you just asked about are carrotwood trees. They had lifted the foundation, they had cracked the asphalt. They're horrible trees in parking lots, as we're all learning. They are being removed. In fact, they're gone. And all of the carrotwoods that you see there, those big bushy green trees on the right as well, will be removed. We went through a very diligent process with staff and especially Keith to make sure that we saved as many healthy mature trees as possible. There are a lot of unhealthy trees on this site that were never properly pruned over time. And so what happens is they get heavy on one side and create a situation where in a high wind they can blow over. So what we did is we did study every tree. We tagged the trees, and then we created a demolition plan for those trees that we are following to the T. Mm-hmm. In fact, Keith Rittek sent me an email a week or two ago asking about a specific tree to make sure it was on our plan or not. So he's paying especially close attention to that. Anywhere we are removing trees, we are replacing them with trees that Keith has okayed that are specifically address the soil conditions and are typical throughout the city.
Steve, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Is that okay now? A little bit better, hopefully.
I can hear you.
Okay. I want to also point out, because it's really important that everyone understands this on this call. We struggle with the topography of this site. We are cut into the side of the hill. As you go up Medical Center Drive, we have a very steep condition at the back of the property that we can't grade around. And so there's really only one point of ingress and egress onto Medical Center. You cannot do it in the back of the site because the slope is way too steep. You would never be able to get a driveway in there that would be safe.
Right.
So what the applicant, the grocery store is technically looking for is it should be defined more as wayfinding. It shouldn't be looked at as monument signage. I hope you can make that differentiation, because I agree the signs that we got approved on the corner of Crown Valley Medical and also on Crown Valley, those do serve a little bit more of an advertising purposes, although they're very subtle. This really is a wayfinding sign. This is for people coming up Medical Center Drive, knowing where that one entrance is. And if you miss it, you're going all the way back up and you're coming around the backside to the mall, back all the way down to Crown Valley again. Mm-hmm. Or if you're coming north on Medical Center, coming down the hill, you will have the backside of that sign that will be visible once we clean up that hillside and have the appropriate vegetation there. Mm-hmm. You will be able to see that sign in time to make that turn safely. Okay.
Well, that answers my question, and I'm glad that those carrotwood trees are being removed so that you can protect the integrity of your parking lot, which is, you know, it really is rough. Could you hold that shot right there? Could you hold that shot right there? Could you back it up just a little bit? Back it up a little bit more. Okay, right there. Now, Philip, I wanted to ask you, if people, when they leave the grocery store, there's going to be a right turn only on that driveway, right there where that hand is. That's a right turn only. If I left there, but I wanted to go north on Crown Valley or east on Crown Valley, is there a sign further down here on the left that says no U-turn? Or the temptation would be for these cars to come in here, get in the left turn lane, and given this wide entrance to the medical buildings, to make a U-turn there. What do you think about prohibiting a U-turn there?
I don't believe there's a no U-turn sign there today. We could consider that. I think if you go to the retail site and you wanted to make an, exit Crown Valley Parkway, you would use the other driveway.
You would go out the other driveway. Okay.
Yeah, and then they could head east in that direction. If they wanted to head west, they could still use the other driveway, go down Crown Valley, and make a U-turn at Medical Center if they're able to make it to the left turn pocket, or the next intersection,
right,
to make a U-turn.
Well, I would appreciate it if you would monitor that, because if you see a lot of people making U-turns there, that's a dangerous situation when you have people that are, you have ambulances coming up and you've got people that are exiting the medical center, the medical buildings. And that's a dangerous, right there, that would be a dangerous place to have somebody trying to make U-turns.
Agreed. Yes, we can definitely monitor that location. Just from the start of this whole project, we did analyze relocating the driveway to, one of our ideas was to match it directly across from the hospital's driveway. But as Steve Thorpe indicated, there's a steep grade differential between Medical Center and the parking lot for the retail site, so we couldn't do it. So we kept the driveway where it is today.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen and Philip. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions by commissioners? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and move to discussion. Commissioners? All right, well, I have a couple of questions, particularly for Philip. Philip, I know we've talked about the double yellow line, if you will, that is alongside the left-hand turn lane. Will there be any changes to that to indicate that this is an approved turnout? I mean, based on just the conversation we've had, there's a question whether or not you can cross over that double yellow line.
There's no proposals to change the existing double yellow line today. I mean, today you can make a left turn in there. And we did coordinate with the Sheriff's Department, and that is a legal left turn with a double yellow line. The illegal portion is when you have two sets of double yellow lines. That's when you're not supposed to cross it. So there's no proposal to change it today, and I think we're going to keep it as is.
So on the north side of, or let's try it again, on the east side of the road, so you've got two yellow lines, the east side yellow line, that wouldn't be dashed or broken, so that a person approaching that intersection would understand that it would be legal to cross over.
That's correct. It is legal to do that today. I can provide you with a couple other examples if you're familiar. Further down Marguerite Parkway near the post office, when you make a right into Shops Boulevard, you make a left into the post office, there's a double yellow line there. And so that's one location. And then I'll let them zoom in so you can see this really quick. Right, yeah, if you could zoom in right there. So there's the entrance to the post office. You have a double yellow line there. You can legally make a left turn in to that driveway. And then another example that's pretty popular is on Alicia Parkway and Charlinda Drive. When you enter Charlinda Drive from Alicia Parkway, you make a left into that driveway, the first driveway to the commercial site. And that site also has a double yellow line.
Okay.
If you go on the north leg right there, yeah, other side, yeah, other side. Right there. Yep. So that driveway right there also has a double yellow line, and it's legal to make a left turn in there.
Okay, well, that clarifies that. I personally, I guess I have some concerns here about the necessity of this. Yes, I understand it's there. Some of my thoughts, of course, are it seems that you're almost always going to be backed up into that turn lane because the primary road, of course, is Crown Valley. So the opportunity to see that driveway, I think, is simply, even with that visual right there, you see how the cars are backed up. I think that's going to be rather obvious. I question also how much traffic coming down from, we'll call from the hospital, is truly going to want to go shopping. And the people who live or who work in the hospital buildings, the medical buildings, that area, I think this is a one-time shot. You're only going to miss it once if you miss it at all. I don't know that the general public is going to find this as the thoroughfare to go in versus coming down Crown Valley, which to me is the arterial that would feed the majority of the clients coming to shop at the business and or Raising Cane's. So I just have some questions that I'm articulating to the rest of you as well. But with that said, any other thoughts? Commissioner Molinari.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to another question. So at the grocery store, I noticed that there's a patio area that's going to be next to there. Now, will this grocery store have a section where they're offering quick serve or you know, a way to, you know, hot service lunches or things like that as part of their offerings at the grocery store? A lot of stores are now doing that. And so if you're looking to bring, you know, a lunch crowd, not only to Raising Cane's, but also to the grocery store for a quick lunch, is that something you're looking as part of that grocery chain? Stephen, I don't know if you could answer that or no.
I can speak to that. So they do have a light offering. It's not specifically what they do, but when we were working through the initial entitlement with staff, due to the proximity of the hospital and the doctors and so nurses and so forth walking over from the hospital, staff, and we agreed, thought it was appropriate to have a seating area, which you see there on the corner, to provide some seats and tables in the event that they wanted to grab something and take it outside for a quick bite to eat.
Okay, great. So there would be, aside from just, you know, your typical grocery shopping, you would be going to the store, you know, for a quick lunch or breakfast or dinner or something like that, correct?
It's certainly something you could do, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns, commissioners?
Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman Reish. Just a question about procedure here, just so I have a better understanding. Per the draft resolution, there would still be a final review by the Director of Community Development. Is that correct? So under conditions of approval, it does say, prior to issuance of a building permit for the new freestanding monument sign, the applicant shall submit a revised plan sign program for final review and approval by the Director of Community Development. So there's still going to be a final review. Okay.
Yeah, they're first going to have to, this is Tim, they're first going to have to submit a, like, as you stated, a new sign program. And then also when they go to actually get a building permit, they'll have to show us working drawings. So there'll be two more steps if it was approved tonight.
Okay, great. That was the only thing I wanted to clarify. And by the way, we should be very grateful for Google Earth. That was incredibly helpful, them going through all of that. We take that for granted, but that's all.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Breton.
I just want to tell the applicants, all of them, that at no time have I ever been told the name of this grocery store. I want to assure them our staff maintains confidentiality, and even behind closed doors, they have not divulged to me the name of this grocery store. And with that, I would like to move approval, adoption of the resolution and approval of the special sign permit.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated.
Okay, let's move on to item 6, consideration of a four-way stop control sign at the intersection of Puerto, Rial and La Alameda. Staff report, please.
Chairman, our transportation engineer, Philip Natolama, will provide the report.
Okay. Let me share my screen really quick. Can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Philip Natolama. I'm traffic engineer for the city. I'm going to present the consideration of four-way stop sign control at the intersection of Puerto Rial and La Alameda. Just a quick background summary. This item was presented at the March 5, 2021 Traffic Committee meeting. There were 4 technical warrants for an always stop sign, and none of them were satisfied from a technical standpoint. This item was recommended to be forwarded to the Planning and Transportation Commission because we had a split vote during the traffic committee. There was one commissioner that voted to approve it and one commissioner that voted to deny it. The initial request came from Miss Ashley Brown, and I'm going to read this very quickly. Hi, Philip. I'm concerned about the safety at the intersection of Puerto Rial and La Alameda. I work at the AAA Automobile Club facing these 2 streets. I've seen 2 situations more than once and want to bring them to your attention so a possible always stop sign can be considered. Our staff constantly hear both drivers using the car horns to alert for possible collisions, as well as drivers gunning their engines to speed on Puerto Rial. This is a dangerous intersection to watch helplessly. First, pedestrians coming down La Alameda and crossing at Puerto Rial towards our shopping center. There are quite a few moms with small kids, strollers that have to run across the street to avoid the speeding cars on Puerto Rial. Second, cars approaching from Crown Valley Parkway on Puerto Rial that are turning right on La Alameda, going so fast that they turn into the far left side, which would be a head-on collision with cars coming down La Alameda. A stop sign on Puerto Rial at La Alameda would eliminate both of these situations from happening and save lives as well. Thank you for your time, Ashley Brown. This is the email request that we received. This is a vicinity map that shows the location of Puerto Rial and La Alameda. We're back in the same area, Crown Valley and Puerto Rial. If you go north on Puerto Rial, La Alameda is that intersection with a yellow circle there. And there's businesses on the north side and residential properties as well. And then on the south side, there's southwest side, there's the retail and offices. And then on the southeast side, there's general office and medical offices. This is our aerial intersection map. Today, there are existing stop signs on La Alameda. That's the yellow dots that you see there. What's being proposed is the red dots, which is stop signs along Puerto Rial. So today you can just drive through this intersection. If you're driving on Puerto Rial, it's uncontrolled. The speed limit on Puerto Rial is 40 miles an hour. And then the speed limit on La Alameda on the collector side is 30 miles an hour. And then on the other side of La Alameda is a driveway to the retail store. The average daily traffic, there's about 6,500 cars on Puerto Rial and about 2,300 cars on La Alameda. And here's our street view photo. The top left photo is if you're traveling northbound on Puerto Real. You can see there's 2 lanes in each direction and a left turn lane. And as you can see, there's no stop sign today. It's an uncontrolled intersection. You just drive right through it. And yes, I took this photo while I was standing on the median there. I had my vest on, so I was safe. The bottom right photo is if you're coming in the opposite direction, you're going southbound on Puerto Real. Again, there's 2 through lanes in each direction and a left turn lane inside the raised median. Now, these 2 photos are for La Alameda. The top left photo is if you're coming from the collector portion of La Alameda. And as you can see, there's an existing stop sign there today. Directly across the intersection is the building where the AAA Auto Club is. And I believe that's where Miss Brown works. On the bottom right, this is looking east on La Alameda. This is the driveway from the retail store, and you're coming out of the driveway. There's this existing stop sign there as well. And across the street or across the intersection is the collector side of La Alameda. These are the 4 technical warrants for an always stop sign. So I'll go through these quickly. The first warrant, Warrant A, is prior to the construction of a traffic signal, we convert the intersection to an always stop sign. So we're not constructing a signal here. That warrant is not met. The second warrant, Warrant B, this requires 5 or more left turn right angle collisions, or basically broadside collisions in a 12-month period. And there were 0 broadside collisions in the past 3 years. So this warrant was not met. And just to let you know, there were also 0 total collisions in the past 3 years, not just broadside, but there were 0 of any collision at that intersection in the past 3 years. Warrant C, this is a traffic volume warrant. This warrant indicates that there are more than 300 vehicles on the main street and 200 vehicles on the side street for a minimum of 8 hours of the day. So that means 300 cars on Puerto Real, that's our main street, and 200 cars on La Alameda for every hour for a minimum of 8 hours of the day. So I color coded our table. Puerto Real reaches that 300 vehicle threshold for 7 of the 8 hours, but La Alameda does not meet any of the vehicle thresholds for the 200 minimum vehicles per hour. So I colored that in red. So that's why it says no on all of those columns. So that volume or that warrant criteria is not met for Warrant C. Warrant D is the last warrant, and this warrant is a combination warrant, well, where 80% of Warrant B and Warrant C is met or satisfied. So for Warrant B, instead of 5 broadside collisions, it would be 4. So we had 0, so that was not met. And then for Warrant C, it would be 240 vehicles on the major street and 160 on the minor street. Even at the 80% threshold, the 160 vehicles for La Alameda, the side street, was not met. So Warrant D did not meet the technical criteria either. So those are the 4 warrants for an always stop sign. We do have, I had a side note at the bottom of this exhibit. We do have other alternatives for speed management. That's spot police enforcement and temporary speed radar trailers. All right. Okay, so here's an excerpt from what transpired at the traffic committee meeting. Staff presented a request for 2 additional stop signs in Puerto Real and La Alameda. The 2 additional stop signs would result in a 4-way stop sign controlled intersection. Traffic data was presented showing that none of the 4 technical warrants for a 4-way stop sign installation were satisfied. Staff noted that there was a previous request at this location for marked crosswalks across Puerto Rial. Staff read the original request for the four-way stop signs and noted that no additional written comments were received. The committee was unable to arrive at a decision about the installation of four-way stop signs due to a split vote. The committee directed staff to forward the item to the next available Planning and Transportation Commission meeting. So the staff recommendation is to deny the proposal to construct four-way stop sign control at the intersection of La Alameda and Puerto Rial based on the failure to satisfy any technical warrant criteria. I wanted to just provide additional information. Back in April 2019, there was a similar request for a crosswalk, marked crosswalk at the same intersection. It was to address pedestrians crossing as well. As you can see, we had marked crosswalk and signage to indicate there was pedestrians crossing here. That particular request in 2019 was also denied. The reason it was denied was because there was an individual that said the center informed their employees to park on La Alameda and walk across the intersection. And the committee suggested that the employee address this parking issue through the business owner and the shopping center's property manager. So the committee denied the request for the marked crosswalk at that time. So that completes my presentation, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that the commissioners have. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Well, Commissioner Kino.
I have another procedural question. Philip had mentioned some alternatives, the speed trailer or spot enforcement. If we wanted to approve those, can we as a commission do that, or do we have to remand this back to the traffic committee for approval and review?
Yeah, you could do that here. We could, submit a request. City staff could submit a request to the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I don't think we need an action for the traffic committee or the planning commission to do that, but we can certainly do so at your request.
Okay, and I think that would be my inclination. And just a quick comment, because the reason this is before the commission is because I created the impasse. It was my insistence at the traffic committee to have this four-way stop, despite staff recommendations to the contrary. But I think after further review and inquiry, I'm no longer inclined to have that four-way stop there or approve that. As I recently learned from Philip and Brett Kennedy, there's doesn't seem to be other examples of stop signs in the city being installed that do not satisfy the technical warrants. So I would be inclined to support the alternatives mentioned by Philip. And again, just some insight into my thinking and what went on at the traffic committee. My concerns were primarily driven, again, by my personal experience over there and the repeat appearance of this intersection before the traffic committee. Just some history. A long time ago, I used to work at 2711 Puerto Rial, which is north of that intersection. And I have driven and still drive through Puerto Rial frequently. And I found that the concerns by Ms. Brown in that email were very compelling, and they aligned with my own experiences as far as the near collisions and hearing people braking and honking to avoid collisions. When you think of how busy that intersection is with the Target there and the Bank of America, it made sense to do something about that intersection. And not to mention, again, from my anecdotal experience, many people drive south from Via Grande to get to Crown Valley, to get to the 5, which causes some more issues over there. But I think my personal experiences in this instance should not outweigh or discount the expert analysis here, which is why I think we probably should, and I would support approving the alternatives. Now, if this was a situation where the majority or all the warrants were met, but staff were still not advising the four-way stop, maybe I would have my personal experience tip the balance in favor of putting that in, but that's not the case here. So I just wanted to give you that insight into my thinking and why this is before all of you.
I should also probably make one comment that if the stop signs went in without meeting warrants, the city has some potential liability in the event of accidents, and the sheriff's department has a difficulty in supporting tickets issued for blowing the stop signs.
Great. Any other commissioner questions for staff?
Yes, Chairman Reese, Vice Chair Blum, please.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Reese. Having served on the traffic committee for a couple years, the city attorney, thank you for bringing up what the warrants mean to the city and to the sheriff's department. And that's a very important point. And I'm all for safety in the city, but as Commissioner Keno pointed out, if you add 2 more stop signs, it could add more problems with that. Puerto Rial being 40 miles an hour, Alameda coming in at 30. They are stopping at Alameda, but creating a 4-way stop there could create more problems. So I'm in favor of recommending approval for staff recommendation.
Any other commissioner questions or concerns? Okay, with that, let's open this up to the public. Do we have any communication from the public for this 4-way stop sign?
No communication.
Okay. Hearing none, then I would like to entertain a motion to deny the approval of the 4-way stop. Do I have?
This is Vice Chair Blum. I'll make the motion to support staff's recommendation, but I would like to recommend spot speed checks. That does a lot of good throughout the city when we need it. And Philip, if you could talk to the sheriff's department and have some spot speed checks there on that intersection for a 2-week period, and that should calm down the speeders.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right.
With the added recommendation of the sheriff department's speed checks.
We have a motion from Commissioner Vice Chair Blum and a second by Commissioner Molinari. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, then we recommend denying the approval of 4-way stop sign. Thank you. Okay, item 7, moving forward. And I think we're going to start carrying some new ground here. The discussion of new ideas for future vision of Mission Vieo. I think this is something that we've never really looked at before, at least in recent history as a commission, and you guys have all brought forth some ideas in your comments. I'd like to ask staff to give us a report and perhaps give us a little direction on how we can move forward with some of the ideas we have. Director Lister.
Yes, good evening again, commissioners. So as you know, this item was raised by Chairman Reich, and I want to emphasize that one of the commission's roles is advisory to the city council. So I think this concept fits in nicely with that. And so what we've done is basically summarize in the minutes and then also in this brief memorandum, those comments. I do have some thoughts. At the last meeting, you suggested that that staff provide either some comments regarding feasibility, and if there's any background. So I thought I'd just very briefly go over them and give you some input if that's the desire of the chairman. Shall we do that? Okay. So the first couple of comments were provided by Chairman Breton. And as he corrected in the minutes earlier this evening, and to be honest, I was a little bit confused by it, so I'm glad the clarification, but it was to to look at Avery Parkway with the idea of providing median landscaping, street lights, and give it more of a sort of an official look, if you will, aesthetic improvements. This was proposed as a CIP several years ago, and I think it's on the city's wish list, but it does have a lower volume of traffic, and then also the fact it terminates. So I think it, while it would be very nice, it's perhaps not terribly feasible in the upcoming budget. So that was staff's comments on that. The second was, excuse me, the second was the idea of establishing a small park where La Paz ends at Olympiad Road. And of course, this would fit in nicely, perhaps, with whatever becomes of Lower Curtis. And as the commission may recall, last summer, they approved the CEQA document for Lower Curtis as a stockpile site. So technically, if any park were to be created, that could be a park, but it would also potentially be the driveway to that site. So any park would have to be further to the south. So it's certainly something that we can look at. There is a cost associated with the curb cut to establish such a park, and I think it's fairly significant. So that's definitely a budgetary factor to take into account. Commissioner Breton also talked about, also the idea of changing the area south of Avery Parkway to add another car dealership. And one of the possibilities would be the strip mall center across from the Jaguar dealership. I think that's an excellent idea, but of course I would point out that it's privately owned by the Kruger family or Kruger Trust. We have had many dealings with Mr. Kruger in the past year, in past years, past decade, if you will. I've never really gotten the feeling that he thinks his strip center looks wonderful. And I would not bet that he's ready to redevelop that anytime soon. I think also people have approached him, potential developers, car dealers have approached him in the past, and the asking price, I think, was a little cost prohibitive. Doesn't mean to say it wouldn't happen. Certainly would be great if it did. Commissioner Breton's fourth recommendation was that after COVID restrictions are lifted, that the city enforce our sign program or recommend to council. I think that's something that staff thoroughly intends to do. Of course, it wouldn't hurt to have council weigh in on that as well. I know that there's some people probably in the community that thinks the sort of COVID signage is a little out of hand. We've tried at council's direction and at the commission's direction as well to be very lenient and understanding of COVID and the shutdown and the, all the changing state regulations as they pertain to COVID. So we've really tried to work with them. But of course, as things are starting to reopen, June 15th apparently is a time frame that we're looking forward to, and maybe we change tiers again and start really pursuing reopening and a return to normalcy, then staff will definitely get going on enforcement. Then Commissioner Breton's fifth comment was that there's a student movement at Los Elises Intermediate School regarding the naming or changing the street name rather to meet the school mascot of Lobos. This was a fee waiver for that application. It was a very expensive application because there's quite a lot of technical steps and notification involved with changing the street. Someone just can't unilaterally decide, oh, I'm going to change the name. So there's various processes that have to be gone through. But anyway, the council did waive that fee. And I know that Tim Martin has been working with the school and the school principal, or essentially the applicant, if you will. And it's my hope that we will have that application on the next agenda. So basically on our May agenda. Moving on to Commissioner Molinari's comments, he had some wonderful suggestions regarding basically economic development as I summarize them. Retail shift to craft establishments, I mean, I just thought they were great. Butcher shops, boutiques, that type of thing. I'd see that more as a sort of trying to get more authentic, if you will, where the community connects. There's definitely a lot of ideas out there regarding that, and I think they're really great. I just think that the craft and the boutique is a great idea, and it's definitely something that we would love to happen. He also had ideas regarding some more restaurants and bars, including craft breweries, vegetarian options, steak and seafood. And again, that's something we would love. We try to encourage. Of course, COVID was difficult. We had been working with a sort of retail consultant in the past, and mainly because of COVID, really not much happened, but it's definitely something we have in our focus and would love to see happen. Regarding health and fitness, we have had a lot of health clubs, I would say, the past 4 to 5 years. There's obviously sales tax considerations, and then there's zoning considerations too with where gyms can go, but your comments well noted. Commissioner Quino had reached out to social media and had numerous comments. Well, he had some comments for additional lanes and stoplights, tree trimming, and if there's any specifics, of course, we're more than happy to look into that either through the traffic committee or through our public services department. Commissioner Quino also talked about a farmer's market. We did have one in the past, and unfortunately it wasn't terribly successful. We've actually had a couple. I don't know if it was location or days of the week, but they failed to continue. There were also comments regarding the expansion of internet and self-service or cell phone service. We do get a lot of applications and modifications to existing cell sites, and those, as the longer you're on the commission, you will definitely see those come before you, either with administrative review or fully to the commission. Commissioner Quino also talked about revitalization of shopping centers, music, restaurants, entertainment. Again, I think these are wonderful ideas. In particular, the center at La Paz and Marguerite came up, and of course this fits in perfectly with the core area vision plan, which has been ongoing, our efforts there. We are, of course, in negotiation to purchase the Steinmart property as a first step to implement the core area vision plan. So I think there's a lot of potential and excitement surrounding that. Commissioner Blum had noted, was recommending the public-private venture for the Freeway Center with Edison. I have heard that, and I'd be interested to hear more ideas along that, but it's definitely something we can look into. He also talked about Site C, and of course we do have a housing site designated there and are looking to ways to improve that site, either through importing dirt and perhaps grading it for future housing. So with that, I hope that gives you a little bit of staff's input regarding your comments, and whatever list you end up with, I see that we could forward that for council consideration again in your role as advisory, and perhaps that can be considered by them in conjunction with their upcoming 2-year budget cycle. So with that, I will conclude.
Thank you, Commissioner Lister, or Director Lister. Commissioners, I know we might have some discussion questions, but I think in the interest of expediency, if we could hold those till we get to discussion at the end, I think that might be a better move. And with that, I'd like to open up this to public comment. Ms. Hannes, do we have any communication on this, on this, this discussion? Commissioner Hannes, you're muted.
Sorry, there we go. Yes, no, I do not have any anyone on the phone.
Okay, well, in that case, then I'll close the public comment. and let's move to discussion. My thoughts here, commissioners, are there's the possible, we'll call it nothing is impossible, but the improbable. And I think in interest of staff time as well, certainly we can discuss through the items that have been brought up. And if there's anything new, then since we had our comments that you'd like to add, that would be great. But ultimately, I think we need to focus on 2 or 3 feasible items that we can ask staff to look into. And from that, then we can make recommendations to council, along with the general comments we've had. So with that said, do I have any thoughts, comments from you, commissioners? Oh, come on now.
I'll go. Right. Director Lister mentioned she'd like to have more input, at least on my suggestions, and for my suggestions, what I meant by the public-private venture is that I believe, and I've done it in other cities, you can team with a private development group to do the heavy lifting and have the city represent themselves with Edison and obtain an easement and have the public or the private side pay for all the improvements. And then the city can enter into a lease with that private developer / architect, and therefore no net cost to the city except for our time or whoever is assigned to talk to Edison. So that's I'm trying to do items that won't cost the city money. Likewise, Site C, what Director Lister mentioned, as we're doing for the stockpile at Lower Curtis, that site can be brought to grade at relatively no cost to the city. So it might be good that we all get together and talk about it and then go over that. I've had experience doing that, and I'd be happy to sit with the commissioners and with staff and go over a plan of attack. If that's your choice, Chairman Reich.
Okay. Other commissioner comments or thoughts? I'm jumping back and forth trying to look for hands, so feel free to speak up.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, Commissioner Breton.
Okay, so at least two of my 5 suggestions are already in progress. One of them is changing the street name. Council has already got the ball rolling on that. And the other one is Director Lister has assured us that when we go from orange to yellow and then from yellow to green, that the city will be more aggressive in enforcing our sign codes. And I would defer to her judgment as to whether we need to give the council a nudge in that direction when the time comes, when everything goes back to normal, a nudge in order to enforce our sign program as the businesses get back in normal operation. However, with regard to my first recommendation, what I really said, as I made clear when I corrected the minutes, was I would like the city to designate all divided streets in our city, the primary and secondary arterials, as parkways. And the reason I'm saying that, and I've spoken with Mark Shagnon about this, the director of public, is it Public Works? He says that if we designated all of our primary and secondary arterials as parkways, it would simply give them more prestige, more cachet, more descriptive names than just road. So right now we have Avery Parkway, we have Crown Valley Parkway, Oso Parkway, Alicia Parkway, Marguerite Parkway, and Santa Margarita Parkway. And I'm proposing that in addition to those, to give these additional streets more prestige and make them sound more elegant than just road, that we call La Paz, that we change La Paz Road to La Paz Parkway. It already has median, it already has the slopes, it leads to parks. In addition to La Paz Parkway, Olympiad Parkway, Felipe Parkway. So those three I'm recommending be changed to be designated. And we're not changing the name of these streets. I'm simply recommending that we change the designation from road to parkway. That would not cost anything because right now the signs on all of these streets simply say Olympiad. They don't say road. It just says La Paz. It just says Felipe. So we're not going to incur a cost in doing this. It would require staff time to coordinate this with the fire department and the police and possibly a few businesses right along Muirlands on La Paz that have the address of La Paz Road and changing to La Paz Parkway. So that is one that I'd like for us as a commission to move forward on. Of all of my 5 recommendations, that's the one that I think is the most doable, the most feasible, and economical to do. And it's a simple one. It's a cosmetic change to designate them as parkways rather than roads. The second one relates to Olympiad Parkway. I think that Olympiad Parkway from Alicia all the way down to Felipe, and then further down Felipe all the way to Marguerite Parkway should be converted into 2 single lanes. It is a feeder street that is not used at its capacity at all. And all of us know that when you drive down Olympiad south of Alicia and go all the way down and where it turns into Felipe, there's very, very little traffic on there. And I would propose that we make a safe, dedicated bicycle lane in both directions on Olympiad and Felipe. And by making a dedicated bicycle lane, there's lots of cyclists, and there's going to be more as we implement our master plan for bicycles, especially as it relates to the Oso Creek Golf Course and bicycle traffic from the lake and coming all the way down to our special off-road bike lane that goes from Cordova Park down to Crown Valley. I think this would make a nice addition to the bicycle trail system that we have in the city. And so it would be, and there's a way, I've talked to Keith Rattay about this. In Irvine, there's a special provision that they use, special striping, to make it very clear that this is for bicycles and this is for cars. Anyway, those are 2 that I think that could be done at very low cost and could be worked on. The others, as far as my idea of a car dealership south of another car dealership, I realize that working with the landowner there is not feasible at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner, I have a question.
I'm sorry, Chairman Reese. How about Geronimo Road, Commissioner Baton?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Geronimo should be Geronimo Parkway. Yes,
Okay.
that's the other one. And by the way, I completely, Vice Chairman Blum, I completely agree that we should talk to the city, especially the city manager, about a corporate yard and ask what his feelings are as far as having a corporate yard over there in the freeway center. I think that's a fabulous idea and that we should move forward on that.
Okay. Commissioners, Commissioner,
Yeah, I want to take all of the above approach, and I think everything that has been conveyed so far, I am on board with, and I think they're great ideas. I would absolutely support the idea of Commissioner Blum leading a sort of subcommittee to explore and create a plan of attack for a public-private partnership. Apologize for the background audio. My window's open. I think some people are skateboarding outside. And then as far as the changing of the streets or to would-be parkways, I think that's also a great idea. I would want the city staff to explore that further and with particular sensitivity to the potential impact on businesses who might have to change their letterheads or business cards to change it to the parkway designation. I think one thing we could also consider is expanding upon what we already have rather than reinventing the wheel. Sorry again for that background noise. All right, I think they've passed. Then there's the mention of the core area vision plan that encompasses this person. I think they're done. We get it. They have a great car. Okay. The core area vision plan encompassing La Paz and Marguerite.
timing is everything.
Yeah. All right, they got it out. I'm so sorry about that. I'm wondering what visibility the vision plan has and to what extent the city is promoting that and letting the residents know that that exists and that's something that we're pushing forward with. I don't know if there's a separate sort of designated website where you can go and view a quick summary of the vision plan and get people excited about it. I know there's a voluminous, the plan itself is voluminous, you can get a PDF version of it, but if we had a website where someone could go in and see a summary of it and see something that is user-friendly that can get them enthused about what's about to come, I think that would go a long way as far as informing people of what we have going on and what they can be part of as this plan unfolds. And then I do have a question about the kaleidoscope and if there's any plans to further revitalize that. And I say that very sensitively. I don't know if there's a concurrence that it has to be revitalized in a sense, but I know it's always been an issue ever since I was a kid, as far as tenants moving in and out and it not bringing in the excitement and the customers that we would like it to have. So if there is any plans about looking at that further, I'd be keenly interested in that.
Commissioner or Director Lister, would you have any thoughts or comments on, first off, of course, the kaleidoscope, and then secondly, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the core plan and how it's been presented, but maybe you could bring us up to date.
Certainly. So kaleidoscope first, I actually talked to the main sort of manager last week, Kobe Dern, and kaleidoscope has, it has had its struggles over the years, and I think COVID was not terribly kind to it. So Kobe's, of course it's privately owned and everything, but I know that Mr. Durham is looking at, ideas. He's always exploring new ideas, and we'll obviously do everything we can to help him with that. Regarding the core, yes, we actually do. When the city council gave authority to enter negotiations for the Steinmart, there is some dedicated information available on the city's web page. But of course, I think the more we can get that information out there, I thoroughly agree. And we do have the vision plan. You know, it has always been on the webpage, but let myself and Larry take a look at that and see what we can do to maybe push some information out there.
Okay. And do you have any thoughts or information on how we've been, certainly over the last few years? I know we've had core presentations at council, but is there anything along the lines of ways where a person could access what that is other than just a PDF? Do we have a website or something?
Yeah, I mean, I need to go back and get the website address, but I know that we just recently put some information out there again when the council gave authorization, you know, to go into negotiations for the Steinmart. So let me give some thought and see what we have, and again, see if we can get some information out there and how the public can find that.
Okay. Great. Commissioner Molinari, do you have any thoughts to weigh in?
Yeah, so we've all kind of wrapped into this core vision plan, which there is that actually YouTube video that was put together a couple years ago, I think by our consulting team, as to you know, what the plan is and how the center would be revived, and it's exciting. I think in a way to market it to the community, have its own landing page maybe on the website. But like I said, this public market idea is fantastic. Obviously, the city's working on a plan, and as we, you know, move tiers and you know, recover from COVID, we can move forward. The first step was Steinmart, et cetera. You know, as commissioners, we should even take time to see what other cities are doing. One city in particular, the city of Stanton, which is, I mean, a fairly challenged over the years, to say the least, municipality, has done a great job with the Rodeo 39 Center. That shopping center was an old Ralph's and several things for years, and was boarded up, and over the years have taken the time to revitalize and have this public marketplace. Same if you go to Long Beach, Second and PCH, there was an old hotel that just, you know, year after year was an eyesore, and the city worked, you know, with their consultants, as we are doing, but commissioners and what we're doing in, you know, in Dana Point, what they're doing down there. So to stay on top of what other communities are doing, to, you know, to help as we're advisors to advise the city. I mean, they know what's going on. They've obviously worked with consultants, but this whole idea of you know, community marketplace, buying the Steinmart is a fantastic first step. As you know, Vice Chairman Blum had commented on our last meeting, there are over 13, I think, private owners of this of that whole strip. So you know, it is a challenge. You know, to knock them down, you know, one at a time. It's not going to be an all-encompassing chore. So anyhow, I think, you know, we have the right plan. We all know what to do, and to offer the support and go and see what's going on in other communities, and you know, really come back to the council and share those thoughts again would be the best thing. And we have the tools with the video that's out there from 2 years ago. I'm sure, you know, the consultants we work with, there's a cost to that video. Maybe, you know, within the next year, an update to the plan of that video to put it out there. I know when I first saw it, maybe a year ago, it was just pretty exciting. So just not have it buried so much, I think is you know, what needs to be done there. Other than that, I think there's some great ideas with, you know, bringing some additional prestige to our streets. Vice Chair Blum, I know you had mentioned regarding the private public works with SCE. you challenge someone who, to talk. I don't know if it's city staff to go and talk with Edison, or if it's someone from the commission to do something like that. But I've always been, of the mindset, sometimes you send someone who doesn't know as much to go for the ask, because they don't know, what someone's going to say no to. So, if I would definitely volunteer my services as a, sales professional of sorts to go in blindly and go for the ask. But that's all for me, everyone. Once again, it's always a pleasure to be a part of these meetings, and it's great to listen to see what the thoughts, the wide array of thoughts. So thank you, fellow commissioners, and thank you, staff.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Molinari. A question for our city attorney. Considering the process of a subcommittee, what would that look like, or how would that evolve? I mean, what's the legalities of that?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about a subcommittee comprised of members of this commission, you can do that. I mean, that's within your purview. Obviously, it has to be less than a quorum. It depends upon what the direction is. Generally speaking, you want to have some specific subject matter in order for it not to be subject to the Brown Act. Alternatively, I suppose that the city council could appoint a joint subcommittee, if you will, comprised of members of the planning commission and of the city council to discuss the issues that you've talked about, if you think that gets you going forward more easily.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's kind of the clarification that I needed. All right. Commissioner Breton, I do have kind of a question for you. You brought up the lack of traffic on, call it the Olympiad Felipe thoroughfare from Alicia to Marguerite. In my experience, because I travel that pretty much every morning, heading over to the Felipe Tennis Center, I find it, I won't say it's impacted, but it definitely is busy. So my concern there, and perhaps as we wrap this up and give staff some direction, might be to look at traffic patterns to see if we could, bring that down to one lane each way, or if that's going to create a bigger issue on its own. So what I see us asking staff for, and obviously commissioners weigh in on this, are a few items. One, of course, is that to look at what the logistics and if it makes sense to take the, from Alicia Marguerite, the Olympiad Felipe direction, what would that entail if we were going to add to bring it down to one lane each way with perhaps a bike lane? That would be item one. Item two, I see as looking at what costs would be involved in taking our main thoroughfares and creating them into parkways. The only thing I see right now are signs, changing some of the signs out that just say Olympiad or Felipe and building it a parkway, but I'd like to see staff give us an idea what that would take. Item three that I look at here, we touched on it briefly about the farmers market. It didn't work in the past, but I'd like to have a little more look into that. When did it fail? When was it tried before? I think that that might be more sensible now. Certainly with more people being home, the more the feeling towards organics and healthier food. Maybe it's a time or something that just wasn't at its right time, and perhaps would be something that would be of benefit to the city. So I'd like to look at that. Lastly, I think definitely should look at consolidating the vehicles, call it at this point at the Edison easement, what it would take, who we need to talk to. Perhaps that might morph into a subcommittee, but I definitely think council would need to be involved with that before we move forward. But looking at that. And lastly, the fifth item on that, if we were to look at the Site C and creating the dirt pad as we did over by Curtis, what that looks like, what how that might go about, how we might be able to proceed with it. I think we've got some precedents with the Curtis site, but definitely look into that. So those are kind of the 5 thoughts that seem to have come out of this that immediately have some warrant. Getting back to us certainly with whatever core information is with the website would be good just to be able to bring back to the commissioners so they've got that in their pocket, something else that they can look at or offer to citizens. Is I think the core plan certainly is something that's its time has come, and I think council is looking at that. But I'd like to take those 5 items and push forward with those and then have staff get back to us, at which point that'll give us the ability to give some recommendations, what we're thinking to council for further review. Discussion, questions, thoughts?
I can jump in from a,
Yeah,
Can you
Director
hear?
Lister.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Commissioner Breton. I think you were on mute and I jumped in. I'll just note, yes, absolutely. I'll get you some information on the core area follow-up tomorrow. I know that councils has asked for an update on that too. That may be as soon as tomorrow, or it may trail. But at a minimum, I'll get you some basic information and we can put together, a brief staff report for the next meeting and get you some details on items 1 through 5.
Outstanding. Commissioners, any other questions, thoughts? Commissioner Dunn.
Okay, with regard to the designation as parkways, I'm not proposing that any street sign be changed. As I stated before, that it says Geronimo, it says Olympiad, it says La Paz, and it could stay that way. We don't have to add the word parkway because Alicia doesn't have the word parkway, and neither does Oso or Crown Valley. But I would propose that, Mr. Chairman, that you and I that you form a subcommittee with regard to the bikeway lane proposal. And that you and I meet with Mark Chagnon, with Director Lister, and possibly with Keith Rattay to discuss this idea of a special designated bicycle lane on Olympiad and Felipe. And the reason I suggest that you be on there is that I'm in favor and you are already tend to be against it, and that's a good balance.
All right.
And we could do the groundwork and not require staff to do so much legwork.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, is there any issue with me just setting up this subcommittee?
You should probably, I mean, you can talk about it and decide kind of that's what you want to do, but it wasn't on the agenda, so you're probably better off agendizing it for the next meeting.
Okay. Then let's look at agendizing that to create this subcommittee. In that case, then I would suggest that we pull that from the 5 items, create it down to 4. And then at our next meeting, we can look at creating this subcommittee. Commissioners, if you have no further questions, I'd like to ask for a motion to move forward with these items. We're all on mute, so someone's going to speak up.
So moved.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Blum. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Commissioner Breton. Do I have any opposition? Hearing none, let's move forward with this. And with that, do I have, let's quickly, I know we've kind of discussed it, but do I have any committee reports first from traffic?
Oh yeah, I have some notes from our meeting on the 9th of April. There were 5 items. First item, we received and approved minutes. Item number 2, we reviewed plans for capacity enhancement at the intersection of Marguerite and Geronimo. This will look to add a second left-hand turn lane on southbound Marguerite, convert the number 2 through lane to a shared through right turn lane on the eastbound side on Geronimo, add a second left turn lane, and add exclusive right turn lane on northbound Marguerite. And lastly, to remove the crosswalk on the South Lake side of Marguerite. That was the second item. Item number 3, we reviewed a request for a proposed accessible parking space in a residential neighborhood at 27286 Jardines. Now, this was actually, we tabled this discussion on the proposed parking space until the next traffic committee meeting in May. What we did do though is we recommended that a potential resolution regarding the establishment of a policy for the installation of on-street accessible parking be sent to the Planning and Transportation Committee for review. And this was based on a draft resolution that was shared with the committee at our meeting. So this will be brought to you, the commission, at our May meeting. Item number 4, we reviewed a request for a no outlet sign on Cerula. The committee agreed not to move forward with a no outlet sign on Cerula. One of the reasons being is the placement of the sign would actually infringe on the private residential property at the corner of Arbolitos and Cerula. But in lieu of the no outlet sign, the committee did approve moving forward with a modified W2-1 crossroads ahead sign that also has a call out for a cul-de-sac in its illustration. So this sign will actually be placed on Arbolitos upon its approach to Cerula, letting cars know that that's a cul-de-sac, not a through street. Lastly, the biggest thing on our agenda that day was item 5, where we reviewed traffic collision analysis at Los Alisos Boulevard and Brussels Avenue. It was requested improvements from property owners. And what we did is we approved staff recommendations for the following: adding a W1-2 modified curve ahead sign on the northbound side of Los Alisos. The next thing would be adding white reflective pavement markers along the bike lane striping on northbound Los Alisos on both sides of Brussels Avenue. Number 3 would be adding a type N sign marker on the northbound side of Los Alisos before Brussels Avenue, which are reflective. And lastly, adding 3 W1-8 reflective chevron signs at the corner north side of Los Alisos and Brussels that align flush with a brick wall. So those are my notes from our traffic committee meeting on April 9th.
Thank you very much. Do we have a committee report from the DRC?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chairman Blum just kissed his wife, I think. I'll give a brief report. On March the 25th, we met to discuss that third monument sign at Medical Center Road, the one that we just approved tonight. On March the 12th, we met to discuss the exterior facade modifications at the Mission Viejo Town Center, which is across from the entrance to Saddleback College on Marguerite Parkway, where the old, I think it was a Pier 1 Imports used to be, that large store. That entire place is vacant now. And so the developer owner has come in with a new color scheme, new wood and stone accent materials, new decorative louvers, a new roof element, and a new tower feature that faces the freeway. We as a committee do not have the authority to approve anything or deny anything. We simply are there to make comments and to ask questions. And we as a committee agreed that it was appropriate. These minor modifications were so minor that they should be given to staff to determine, to handle without bringing it to the commission. So that concludes my report. And Vice Chairman Blum, you want to add anything?
No, I thank you for the summary, Commissioner Breton, and yes, those minor modifications can be handled through staff. So thank you for the report.
Thank you very much, DRC members. Staff, do we have any final comments?
No, nothing from me this evening, thanks.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any comments? Commissioner Kino.
I greatly appreciate you playing the USC fight song at the beginning of this meeting, Fight On, because I believe in silly rivalries. If you feel compelled to play the UCLA fight song, I will acknowledge it as UC Berkeley's fight song, from which it was stolen, my other alma mater. But yeah, thank you all again to the city staff and my colleagues for continuing to do such a great job. We have an awesome city, and thank you for keeping it awesome. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. My only comment on the Trojan fight song, you need to look up the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo fight song. I don't know if we have one, but let's have equal retribution.
Retribution.
Commissioner Molinari.
I just want to thank my colleagues and the staff for their time this evening, and especially Commissioner Quino and the hard work and teamwork we put in on the traffic committee. It's a pleasure working with all of you.
Commissioner Breton.
I have 3 quick comments. Number 1, I want to compliment staff on 2 items tonight. I don't know if you noticed, but when we approve a resolution, that we're required to make certain findings, that this will be not detrimental, it will not create a nuisance, it will not inflict harm on adjacent properties, etc. And for the first time, we actually had specific responses to those findings that we are required to make. The applicant went to the trouble of addressing each one of those findings and listing reasons why those findings that we're asked to make would be justified. Those are justifiable findings. I don't know if it was Larry Longnecker or Director Lister who is responsible for that, but I think that should be done with every application. It is excellent to have them to ask the applicant to provide justification for those findings. It makes our job easier. And I'm talking specifically about items 3, the Wild Fork, and item 5, the grocery store. Number 2, I want to congratulate the Nadadoras on hosting a marvelous swim meet this weekend, which showcased Mission Viejo to the entire nation on NBC Sports in such a spectacular setting. And third, I want to congratulate our planning staff from Director Lister on down for all the work that they did over at SOCA in helping with the vaccination over there. I understand that they're now relieved of those duties and they're back at City Hall, but I want to thank them for that hard work. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Blum.
I'd like to thank planning staff from Director Lister on down. Thank you for all your hard work and always being there when we have questions. I want to thank you all. That really helps us get our heads on straight when we have these meetings. And I'd like to thank all my colleagues, Chairman Reish, for your thoroughness and your ability to articulate questions for our applicants. And the city attorney, thank you for keeping us solid. That's it.
All right, gentlemen. Director Lister, please correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, it looks like we will be meeting in chambers for our next meeting. Is that correct?
You know, I'm going to have Larry explain what the situation is with that and what we're doing to try to explore a workaround.
So we hope to be meeting live, but it's a little bit more complicated than it is for the city council because the city council meetings are broadcast live on television. So while the public's not allowed in the chambers during the meeting, they can all watch and even call in. So applicants and anybody in the public who wants to speak on an item can call in. The Planning Commission is not televised. So if we don't do it over Zoom, we don't have anything to broadcast. Now we're going to meet with IT. We're hoping that there's some workarounds. So we do hope to be live in May. And I think we've sort of been given those marching orders to try to make that happen.
You paused.
You froze.
Okay.
I think he was just going to explain. He froze rather dramatically there. But
So much for live.
I think he was going to explain that we have a meeting set up with IT this week to see if we can come up with a workaround. It's an annoying little problem that we just need to figure out. And of course, when you have that combination of Zoom and live, you have dreadful feedback. And I think they had some issues with that at the last council meeting. So we've been sort of told that's really not an option. So, but we're trying to figure it out.
Okay. Well, in that case, then to be determined, but we're looking in that direction, which I think is a great thought. We'll just call it as we begin to resume some type of normality. Staff, commissioners, thank you very much as we go into new ground. I mean, this is some things we're doing we've never done before. So it's a welcome change, and I look forward to us using our abilities to help this city move forward. Lastly, my last announcement, if you will, is personal, but I am a grandfather. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much. As of last Tuesday. So although my grandson is living in England still, but at some point in time I'll be able to see him. But I'm a very happy grandpa. So with that said, it is 9:36. I will adjourn this meeting until May the 10th. Thank you very much all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Fight on. Fight on.
Fight on. Congrats, Chairman.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.